Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I'm Taylor Rockwell. I am alone in studio. No Daryl Grove sitting across from me because he has the evening off. And that is because I have called up Alexi Lalas to get his thoughts on that U.S. men's national team roster, his expectations for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers, as well as some insight into the U.S. locker room, both past and present, and some moments from his own career that maybe help inform the life of a U.S. national team player. We are also joined by a special guest about midway through the interview. Keep your ears peeled for that one, though it's kind of hard to miss. So with all that said, here's Alexi. Joining me now, I've got my friend and yours. It's Mr. Alexi Lalas. Alexi, thank you very much for taking the time, as always.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Big week for soccer. Everyone's, wringing their hands and pulling out their hair and worried. Are you worried?
I'm not worried, but I'm not confident, if that answers your question.
Wow. Well, I was listening to your preview, I guess, after the roster came out.
Yeah.
So I sensed some trepidation and or some irritation on the personnel that was picked, but that's to be expected, I would think.
Well, I mean, I think you've been a little bit more rational about it. I think Daryl Grove was as well. I think I was the one who was, at least for the Total Soccer Show side, pretty emotional about it. I think just because I would have liked to see some new faces, and I think it's just maybe there's just that element of after a while it feels a little bit stale, and even if it's not, it just feels that way. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it basically, I think maybe the United States could have used a little bit of a spark of oh, this guy's coming in and maybe he's going to push things. Or this guy's going to change it up. Maybe that's supposed to be Benny Feilhaber. I'm not entirely certain.
So you wanted just, some optic type of thing that showed that, hey, this is something special and it hasn't gone well, and so this person is going to become this representation of a new leaf, or just at least something different, or a different sense of how we're approaching it. That's what you wanted. Whether that person has any experience at all, or let alone can actually play, right?
Yeah, no, I wanted
what you want?
I wanted a 12-year-old who we all think is going to be the next big thing. No professional minutes, but they're just going to bring that spark. No, I mean, and I think.
Look, let's be honest. Pulisic is so yesterday.
You got me there. And that is kind of the reminder that, there are these still very talented, very exciting players on there. I think just any time you have maybe some names left off that people expected to be included, and some names included that people didn't expect to be included, you get that little bit of drama, combined with the fact that, I feel like this is the most tense qualifying has been, or an overall hex has been in quite some time. At least 4 years.
I think if you really look at it, this is certainly the biggest World Cup qualifier since 1989, qualifying for against Trinidad, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at it, it's the biggest game for the men's national team since the Belgium game of the World Cup.
Yep.
In terms of ramifications and pressure, attention, all of those different things, I think apply. I think they are valid. I think they are fair. And after saying all that, look, I do not have blind faith in the U.S. national team. Yes, it's personal. Yes, I get emotional about it. Yes, I scream and yell about it. But I do have faith that this team coming in against a Panama, an inferior side, given what they did and the debacle that was that previous week, I think they're going to come in, and I think that they are going to handily dispose of Panama, get the 3 points, and then go on, and we'll see what happens in Trinidad.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing, and maybe this is probably the most entitled opinion possible, so I'm okay with that. But it almost feels a little bit I kind of expect that to happen. I'm not necessarily nervous about the United States failing to qualify or having to qualify via that playoff spot. It's just more right now, I kind of had this idea of Bruce Arena figured it out. He's righted the ship. He's getting the results. He's being practical, and then to see it kind of slip a little bit and maybe feel maybe there wasn't such a plan, it just gave me cause for concern. Daryl always makes fun of me about that one. And so now I feel a little bit even if they do qualify, is it going to be more of the same from Bruce Arena? Is it going to be the same faces and same names? Or is there going to be a little bit of a change?
So that's interesting. So you're worried, you're extrapolating it out and saying, look, if this is as good as it gets, is that something that I necessarily should be excited about? Whether they go through the next 2 games and get the points, you're still worried about ultimately the World Cup type of performance. And that's completely valid too. And I get that. I get that actually more because I think that people want to believe that in the summer of 2018 that the U.S. men's national team, given all the time that has passed since let's call it the modern era. Let's start from 1990, shall we? That the team representing the U.S. in 2018 is going to be something different and better, and something that they can really believe in. And I get the feeling that certainly after those last two games, you and others have the feeling that this is going to be kind of just, even if they get there, it's not going to be something that we are going to be excited about. And that's fine. I will say, and I know we've talked a lot about 2002, and it's certainly not 2002, but the U.S. did finish third in the Hex in 2000 and, well, it would have been 2001, qualifying for 2002, and then went on to have a historic finish in the modern day. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen here. I get that. I get it. I can actually be convinced to be more pessimistic, I guess, if you want.
I mean, no, I always appreciate your optimism, and I also appreciate that this show seems to have evolved into like soccer therapy with Alexi Lalas, where you get to my innermost concerns about the U.S. national team and then we discuss them openly. I appreciate that you're there for me in the way like Dr. Melfi is there for Tony Soprano.
All right, so give me some names. Obviously, the first thing is the Fabian Johnson thing that jumps out at you, and there is no, at least of yet. And we are recording this on what day is today? Monday night. So there's still no official word from Bruce Arena and or the Federation as to why this happened, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, not that we've heard of.
I mean, are you irritated about it? Are you worried about not having Fabian Johnson as a possible starter?
I mean, I'll say, to go back to the show you were referencing, the one we recorded last night where we went through the roster, I think I was until we watched a little bit of footage of him, and then I had a deeper think about Fabian Johnson. And the reality is, for the times that he's been very, very good for the United States, there have also been those times where he's been frustrating or asked to sub out or has been asked not to be called up. And there are just those moments that make me wonder, is he the best possible option? If you're not going to start him at left back, which I don't think Arena was going to do, then do I want him supplanting Darlington Nagbe as a left winger? Probably not. And then it kind of comes down to where does he fit? And I'm not sure he does. And so I think I was a little bit frustrated in the beginning, and now it makes more sense to me. It's definitely strange because of his profile and who he is, but by the same token, I think I'm more or less okay with it now.
Well, I always say that form is fallacy. So just because a player is playing well or poorly at his club team doesn't necessarily mean that he can come in and not do well or vice versa, do poorly for the national team. But I think you hit on it when it comes to that left back position, because I am still not sold, and I know I'm not alone, Villafaña. Look, if he goes all the way through the World Cup next summer and lights it up, that will be great. And I will say, you know what? I was completely wrong about it. And it's not that he's a bad player. I just think that ultimately, and once getting back to what you said, when this team does get to a situation where we are playing teams that are better than us, and we have to have individuals and a collective understanding of how we're going to play, and guys get strung out wide and all that kind of stuff, I worry about that. And so then you say, well, Fabian Johnson, we've seen him play left back, and is he the best left back that they have at this point? And yet I know he wants to play midfield. And one of his things this year, and one of Bruce's things was, we're going to play you in the place that you are most comfortable with. But if he's the best for the team at left back, at one point, do you not sit him down and say, look, this is the deal. If you can accept that, great. If not, thank you very much. Now, I don't know the dynamic with Fabian Johnson. I was saying something to the effect the other day that a group is very, very delicate, and it is this fine machine that can change when you add and or subtract one player and one type of personality. And so taking out Fabian or adding a guy like Benny Feilhaber can just change it, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, depending. That's something that coaching is at its core. That's what you have to do, is figure that out. I don't know if this is something that's going to affect the team from a dynamic perspective and then therefore how they play. But this is a guy that I think a lot of people, while you might look at him and say he's not playing a lot or he's not playing well when he is playing right now with this club team, this is a guy that has been there, and for all intents and purposes, if you had somebody else that was better than him, then it would be a little bit more palatable. But I recognize why some people would say this is a little strange, unless there is a meaning behind it that we just don't know about when it comes to Bruce Arena.
So you mentioned like the personalities in there, what they bring to the table. I'm wondering, you obviously know Major League Soccer and the players in Major League Soccer far better than Daryl and I. What do you make of Benny Feilhaber? What does he bring to this U.S. national team? What is his kind of disposition in the locker room, as far as you know?
Benny has a wonderful ego, and that beautiful ego that I talk about that can get him and me and others in trouble at times, and you have to know how to balance it. You have to know how to regulate it. You have to know how to harness it so that it doesn't become a problem. But ultimately, that ego is what makes him great, and he can do things in that moment, magical things. And certainly against a team that you are better than or equal to, I think he can be of service. The problem with Benny would come when we don't have the ball and when it is a down and dirty type of existence where either the ball is you just never see it because the other team has it so much, or the ball is flying back and forth and it never settles down to give that rhythm, then he kind of fades out, and it's understandable to a certain extent. So that's the type of player that he is. I don't know if Bruce Arena sees, at one point I'm going to need that type of player to open up the midfield or whatever, or when everybody's over on Christian Pulisic and he's being targeted, and or Darlington Nagbe isn't doing it. Maybe I got a guy like Benny Feilhaber that I can put in there that can do some interesting things and get me that goal that I need, or get me at least that pass that leads to that goal that I need.
So if Benny Feilhaber's bringing in the ego then, and the ability obviously as well, from what you know, who do you think is like brings the personality? Who are the players that Bruce Arena kind of counts on to lighten up the locker room, get everybody in kind of a good mood for camp and for the games ahead?
I have no flippin' idea.
Really?
This is a team that, from the outside, once again, is devoid of any individual or collective personality. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because how personalities manifest and how they impact a team can be different. And it also doesn't even necessarily mean that you need larger than life type of people that are screaming and yelling and giving good quote and running around. I mean, that's not it. But this is a subdued type of group in the way that they go about their business. And I think much of it is probably by design, and much of it is relative to the type of people that they have. So there is not any type of major character or personality when it comes to this team. It doesn't mean, by the way, that they're not interesting, and it doesn't mean that they're not necessarily good players, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard for me to put my finger on it. And as I said, I'm not in that locker room. So that door might close, and Bob Bradley was famous for talking about the circle, and we don't let anything get out of the circle. And maybe this is just another situation where there's this circle that is just so powerful and tight that nothing gets out. And maybe that door closes and they're all a bunch of crazies.
All right, well then, I had another locker room question for you. This one, maybe not specifically about this team, but kind of locker rooms in general. So we were talking about Wondolowski on the show. I don't know if you got all the way through, but one of the points that I was kind of pondering is it just fans that remember, say that miss against Belgium? That seems to be the thing that a lot of people condemn him with, which is, he missed this. That was the one reason he was there. We can't get over that. And my feeling was more so, I was wondering, do professionals dwell on that, or is it more likely that they are sort of like, you missed one, that happens to all of us, and they've kind of moved on, and maybe it's the fans more so who are kind of hanging on to those memories?
Oh, I don't think that Chris Wondolowski dwells on it. Does he think about it? Yes. Is he reminded about it constantly? Yes. Has he been to therapy? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, but I think, and one of the reasons why Chris Wondolowski is recognized as valuable is because he has that trait that every goal scorer has. He forgets quickly, and he forgets within a game. I think he forgets within a season, and he certainly forgets within years. And it's not that he probably doesn't think about it every once in a while, or think about, had I put that in, how would things change? How would the perception of me change? But I don't think it ultimately affects how he goes about his job anymore. I don't think he's going on the field thinking about, oh God, I missed that chance, and now what happens if I miss it again? And that's all people think about. No, I mean he's had an incredible career. He's going to go down as one of the greatest MLS goal scorers in history. And look, people recognize his value. There's a reason why he keeps getting called in. And I know maybe the general public look at it as, how is this possible? If you're just basing it on the fact that he missed that one opportunity, okay, I get it, but that's not how soccer works. And by the way, that's not how life works for the most part. That doesn't mean that you can't be defined by one moment, but it doesn't mean that that's how either you define yourself or the people that matter and that are making decisions that affect you define you.
But in terms of like the team as a whole, or even like in your time playing with the national team, like if there is a bad miss like that from, I don't know, say Eric Winalda has a bad miss in a game when you're playing with the national team with him, like is that something that you guys remember, and like the next game are you like, hey man, you better not have that miss again? Or is it something that you maybe are just sort of like I don't know, any team, you kind of razz them a little bit and then you move on?
Yeah, we kill them. Oh yeah, we crush them. But once again, that's from the inside. That's kind of like, it's the mafia mentality. So we can crush anybody from the inside, but it's like a family. So I will destroy you inside, but if anybody from the outside tries to do it, then I'm all over.
I gotcha.
So that's kind of what we do. But we go on, and I think a lot of it also depends on the things that you do that either we don't see from the outside, or just go unnoticed for whatever reason, that goal scorers in particular do, because goal scorers. If, for example, Rob Stone is about to enter the car, ladies and gentlemen, I can feel it. I'm going to unlock it. Here he comes. Special guest, Rob Stone.
Oh, hey,
Taylor. We're in the middle of a podcast.
Oh, this should be exciting. What are you talking about? Maybe soccer?
We are talking about soccer, and we've just gotten to the point, Rob, where we are discussing.
You guys know stuff about soccer?
Goal scorers, okay?
I've heard they're important.
And someone like Chris Wondolowski, who has famously missed this opportunity.
People move on from that. Jeez.
And does it affect anybody? How much does it affect people within a team? How much does it affect people if somebody misses a shot and something? I was saying that, if Eric Winalda, let's just throw out an example. How about Eric Winalda were to miss a shot? I know it never happened, but let's just say hypothetically he were to miss a sitter. Right. Would we give him crap? And the answer is undeniably yes. As teammates, we would kill him. But from the outside, we didn't want anybody, and we would protect him from the outside. And then at some point, you let it go. But also, if you are a goal scorer that does other things, I think that you get more of the benefit of the doubt. So if you are tracking back and you're defending and you are doing the things that sometimes goal scorers just either don't want to do or just don't do, then you get a benefit of the doubt. But if you don't, then it's like, listen, I'm working my ass off to enable you to do the one thing that you do. Yep. So don't let me down on that one thing. I'll forgive the fact that you're not going to defend and maybe you're a pain in the ass on and off the field.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But it's because I am rewarded with that goal, and there is nothing more valuable than goals in the game. And if you're not doing that, then you are of no use to me.
I like that pack of hyenas mentality. We're like, whoa. That's our kill, not your kill.
Right.
We get to kill him, but not for you.
Exactly.
No, I agree. I've watched so much soccer that I have the utmost respect for the people who put the ball in the net, because it's something I can't do and I never could do. I could defend, I could hustle, I could pass, I could assist, but that goal scoring mentality, it's not my DNA, and it's a different cat that has it. So I do give them extra credit for that, but I do want to see them work. And if you're not working, I'm not interested in you.
Well, first of all,
Taylor.
Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Good.
I like that we've gone back to you guys kind of going back and forth, and I'll just throw in a question here and there, but I'm more than content just to sit back and let y'all do your thing. But I actually did have, Rob, one more question that you probably have some thoughts on, but I feel like Alexi has the experience, so maybe we'll start with him. Alexi,
am I being shunned already?
Yeah, but I mean,
wasn't an invited guest. I just crashed the car ride. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. That's how it works. We just have a policy. Colgate is your alma mater, right?
Bang. Lexi, are you aware of that I went to Colgate?
No, I had no idea, Rob, that you went to Colgate.
Yes, there you go. So we don't like toothpastes as colleges, so you're just going to have to be quiet for a minute. And we're going to go to Alexi Lalas to ask him, when you were playing with the national team and you had young players coming in, because a lot of people are excited about the possibility of young players coming in for this team, what is that like as a veteran? Is it exciting, or is it sort of like, like, you're here, maybe playing the same spot as me, and maybe you're someone to keep an eye on? Like, is it an exciting thing, or is it more so like a disconcerting moment?
Is it exciting? Mm-hmm. I never thought of it as exciting in that I think, well, initially, look, we're all a bunch of, egotistical maniacs. So first off, you feel threatened, especially if that person is playing your position. So you feel threatened, and what is this guy doing? Then from a team perspective, if and when these players come in, and so I would think from a pure survival standpoint, looking at Christian Pulisic, for example, I would have looked and said, this guy makes me better in that he helps me win games. I like this guy. I want to have this guy around. Now, he didn't play my position, and so my view on him might be different. Now, that's on the field. We talk so much about the 90 minutes, and we forget about the other 22 and a half hours that you have to exist in a team type of situation. And so how that player integrates in with the group, that's important, and that's where veterans are important. And at a certain point, you have to stop feeling threatened and say, look, this guy is here for a reason. I want to welcome him in. I want to give him the chance to prove that he deserves to be here, and I don't want to do anything that's going to be detrimental to that. Without the usual hazing of young kids and all that. And I'm not talking about bad hazing. I'm talking about carry the water bottles and credit card roulette or whatever it ends up being.
I was going to ask that. Are there like specific rituals for young guys? Like, should we expect to see Weston McKennie dressing weird or Tyler Adams carrying Tim Howard's luggage?
Yeah, we've done all the different, making them sing and making them stand up in bars and making them, just do ridiculous things. Anything really to embarrass them. With the understanding that at some point some of these guys are going to be vital parts of the team, and if and when that point comes, they are going to remember everything that you did to them, especially the things that embarrassed them, and they are going to be telling stories for a number of years about guys that were nice to them and the guys that weren't nice to them. And ultimately, they are going to be the ones taking your spot and the ones leading going forward, because everybody is expendable. And
then eventually when they take your spot, you retire and then do the in-studio punditry along with your friend who you carpool with? Is that basically the way it works?
There we go.
Right.
That's the circle of life.
I like that. Well, so then I wanted to ask you guys, so these games are on ESPN and beIN Sports. So when you all aren't covering them, when you're not doing the kind of in-studio coverage, what are you all doing? Are you at bars, or are you doing your own different sort of publicity and PR work for Fox? What do you guys have up on, say, Friday?
Well, Rob Stone is a man who knows all sports and is good at talking about all those different sports. So he's got a full plate when it comes to, and I don't want to speak for you now, but we got college football, which is in full swing. Basketball, I'm assuming, is going to be starting up pretty soon.
Yeah, it's about a month and a half away.
Look at him shaking his head. So all of that kind of stuff happens, along with MLS stuff that we're getting ready for. Me, I am getting on a plane tomorrow, and I'm actually going to Orlando, so I'm going to be there. I'm doing some appearances down there, and I'm there to see the game. I mean, I want to see this. This is a historic moment, and as I said, despite my comments from a few weeks ago, ultimately, yes, I want this team to do well. I want this team to win, and I think that they will win, and they will get the points needed in order to go to the World Cup.
So, Rob, you missed the beginning of this where we talked about the roster, and Alexi called me out a little bit on some of my concerns about it. How did you feel when you first saw the roster released by U.S. Soccer?
Well, it was funny. We had an event with Bruce Arena earlier last week.
Yep.
And at a certain juncture in the evening, I found it appropriate to sit next to him with pen and paper and say, give me your 11 right now. And he banged it out without hesitation. He had two positions that were kind of circled as an either or. And he brought up to me, right away, Fabian Johnson, out of form, probably not coming in. So I had an indication of what was going on. And, in moments like this, you rely on the people who have gotten you there before and who've proven that they can get things done. This is not the time to gamble and risk and try some new formation. It is all hands on deck for 3 points versus Panama. So there was very little that caught me off guard by that lineup. And again, injuries by the roster, injuries and whatnot dictates a lot this time of year as well. But Bruce knows full well the value of Friday in Orlando, and it is 3 points come hell or high water.
So two questions then. One, that 11 that he banged out, is that for like World Cup qualifying specifically? Is that for maybe
No,
World Cup?
that is for Friday's game.
Okay,
Panama.
gotcha. Okay, cool. That makes more sense. And then my second question in regards to that is is Bruce Arena one of the few coaches that you would feel comfortable doing that with? Like, if that were Jurgen, would you have done that as well, or Bob Bradley, or I don't know, so like a large, would you feel comfortable going out to Pep Guardiola, being like, hey, what do you got going on this weekend?
Well, I mean, there's few people in our industry who I've spent as much time with through the course of the years covering sports as a Bruce Arena or even a Bob Bradley. So there's there's a comfort factor, and I'm sure at some point a grudgingly respect factor that's out there as well on their part. I clearly respect them, and they've come to, I think, trust us as allies. They realize we're all in this kind of fight together, and it was a moment where neither of us had to say, this is off the record, we're not sharing this, I'm not putting this on Twitter. It was two guys who are friends, who see each other a lot and want the best for the same thing, and we just talk soccer, and it's fantastic, and I love that about Bruce. I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there who would have hidden it, but I think there's also just as many major big name coaches who are comfortable in their own skin and say, here's what I'm doing. I remember Dominic Kinnear was one of the best. When he was the head coach, we would have these meetings with him, and he would just, here's my 11, do whatever you want with it. I don't care. It's not going to change. These are the guys. This is the way I want to line up. And other coaches are not as straightforward and trustworthy with that intel. But I always like the guys who are more, it seems like.
Yeah, it definitely makes things a little bit simpler. My question is regarding that 11, was Julian Green starting in like 4 different spots, or did he just have him like as the entire team?
He was running the show. He was wearing the number 10.
I mean, that's what I assumed. I just wanted to, get clarification.
Yeah. And Gideon was there too, running around as well.
Mix, I think, was it right back.
Yeah, they're all there.
Oh, God, that's awesome. Rob, one more question for you. I'm guessing you have your own opinions, and especially when you've got some people with strong opinions doing the in-studio stuff with you. Do you ever find yourself like having to really like check what you want to say and just kind of stick to like asking the polite questions, or do you have those moments where you're like, nah, I don't necessarily agree with that one?
I think I have very minor flashes. It's not really my job, and it's not really my desire to throw my takes around. I prefer it when Alexi and I are in a car yelling at each other, and that's when it comes out. My job, in all honesty, is to set these guys and gals up, make them look as good as possible. And with some people, it takes more work than others, but that's my job. I need to step out of the way. People aren't waiting to hear what a former Colgate midfielder thinks about the U.S. lining up with Panama. They want me to give me the facts, set the tone, set some questions, and let's hear from the real experts.
All right, so you mentioned it, and I mentioned it earlier, and I feel like you laughed at me. Do you get asked about Colgate a lot? Is that what I'm getting out of this one?
No, I don't get asked about it a lot. Alexi hears about it a lot. He hears about it from me. He hears about it at probably 80% of the events that we go to for some function.
It is ridiculous for such a small school. The amount of Colgate people that I am exposed to. We will be walking through an airport, and we'll be, on those people movers, and Rob will catch the eye of somebody going the other way, and all of a sudden he's jumping over, and this guy was in my frat, or this guy knew this, or something like that. Everywhere we go, there are Colgate people. I just don't understand how it happens. They must have some sort of chip implanted when they're up there, and then they just attract everywhere we go. So I do have to hear about Colgate constantly, whether I want to or not. Yeah,
I have something roughly similar, although usually it's my dad doing it for me, because I went to a school of about 1,100 kids in Kentucky, and I get that, like, this guy's sister's cousin went to center, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, and then that's pretty much the end of that story. So I can imagine Alexi kind of dealing with that similarly, of like, oh, really, Colgate, awesome, I'm going to go get another drink.
Right. He gets a lot of it, but he handles it well.
That's good.
They're good people. That's all right. They're good people.
And then in terms of the carpooling, like, does the station find its way to like Alexi Lalas' Spotify playlist, and it's just him singing at Rob Stone while he's talking, or do you guys rotate who's in control of the music?
Yeah, it depends what we're. I mean, we'll listen to soccer. We'll listen to podcasts. We will listen to Sirius XM, that type of stuff. We are big yacht rock fans, and so there's a lot of yacht rock that makes its way on our drive. We got Christopher Cross or Stephen Bishop or Ambrosia or Bread just cranking away, which I know means probably nothing to you, but it's glorious. And if you say anything negative about it, I will jump through this phone and fight you.
But then a lot of heavy metal.
There's a lot of metal.
A lot of banging. A lot of phone calls to our stat details on our drive.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been here less than you've been here, Lex, but we've learned to utilize our time in the car together to the highest degree possible, whether it's researching, furthering a cause, creating conversations that we figure out work or don't work for our broadcast later that day. And then sometimes, like, you don't want it. You just want music, right? Like we between us, we've got 6 kids and probably not enough time to listen to music. And some days you just want to listen to some damn rock and roll.
Now, I got to ask, though, when you say metal, are we talking like Poison? Are we talking Metallica? Are we talking Slayer?
Yeah.
All the above. Okay, cool. All right. That's good. That's a good way to get amped up. I would prefer that be your like lead-in music for the in-studio segments. Just get some like Slayer, Metallica going. I feel like that'll get everybody G'd up.
Well,
nice and
I
ready.
know that there's some metalheads out there that are hearing us equate Poison with metal, and they're cringing. And you know what? They can kiss my ass. All right, it's good because listen. I will listen to Poison and Warrant and Skid Row and Rat and Motley Crue and all that kind of stuff, but certainly I'll listen to AC/DC and Metallica, and I guess Guns would fall in that category. All that different stuff. If it's got melody, I think it's important. But there's a lot of people that say that metal, that part of metal doesn't necessarily have melody. But that's for another podcast and another discussion.
Agreed. I'll also agree that Sebastian Bach has range and he can hit those notes. So I'll stick with Skid Row.
And I will put Slave to the Grind, the second Skid Row album, up against any metal out there and for any metalhead, and I will defend it till the day I die.
Rob Stone, your thoughts on this entire conversation?
I will not defend it till the day I die. I've got other things I need to defend more than that.
And you guys don't go any Clint Dempsey tracks while you're in the car? That never happens? I think he just has the one, actually, that I know of. So
there's not a lot of rap and or hip hop. But listen, we are at this point where, as I said, we want the U.S. to qualify for a number of reasons, not the least of which is we work for Fox, and it certainly would help us. And if listening to Clint Dempsey's music,
let's turn it up,
will help in that endeavor, we will crank it up. Believe me.
I like the idea that that's what's been missing from this team is more people listening to Clint Dempsey's albums. Then they'd really be achieving maximum potential. So then, what do you?
Clint Dempsey listens to Clint Dempsey.
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to, right? Like, isn't that the equivalent? It's not the equivalent, but isn't it roughly the equivalent of like me listening to my own podcast? Like, yeah, I really nailed that point. Like, you kind of can't listen to your own stuff, can you?
Hey, listen, if you don't love yourself, nobody else is going to.
Damn straight.
Oh, wow. See, we're back to soccer therapy with Alexi Lalas. Rob, you missed that one. So my final wrapping it up then, to go back to maybe talking about soccer for a second then. What are your expectations for these upcoming games? What are you hoping to see? Obviously victories, but is there anything on the field you'd like to see? Any specific combinations? Any players shining in particular?
I don't give a rat's ass who does it and how they do it. Just get to Russia. Honestly, I could care less. It could be the ugliest win and points ever, and I'm going to celebrate like no tomorrow. So I don't need I really need to see Pulisic run the show, or I need to see Nagby take on people more. Look, that would be great, and I'm going to want it eventually, but I'm going to want it in about a week's time.
Yeah, we've gotten to a point where we can't. Beggars can't be choosers. We need the result. In order to do the good things that one can do in a World Cup, obviously one has to be there. And we've put ourselves in this predicament. I expect them to come out. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, and I also, likewise, could care less if it's pretty. I just want them to get the result. I think that they will get the result. No, I know that they will get the result.
America!
They're a better team. I think that they will be jacked up. I think, and I think that they will recognize the moment, recognize their responsibility, the leadership will be there, and that will manifest in a performance that from that first whistle you go, oh my goodness, look out, they're coming, and they're coming hard.
All right, well, that seems as good a place as any to end it. I want to let you guys get back to musical debates and the like, so thank you both for taking the time to talk to me this evening.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for not inviting me.
My pleasure as well. Thanks, gentlemen.